Hey guys, SimCoder here, and today we are going to start off on our off system. So we are going to integrate Firebase with our project. We are going to create a login page, and we are going to create one endpoint which will verify if the user is really the user that's making the request. So we'll be validating a token provided by Firebase. So this will be really simple. You don't need to worry about a lot because all of the documentation is really well made by Firebase. So everything is explained to the smallest detail. So let's jump right into it. Okay, so the first things first, I'm going to go into our YouTube project, Firebase project, and I'm going to jump into the authentication page. Right now, we don't have anything set up, but if we go into sign-in method, we are going to click on email and password and enable it. In this project, we'll have just email and password because it is the simplest one because we don't get a lot of information out of it, just the important stuff. But to implement, for example, Google sign-in is really straightforward, and probably in the redesign I'll do it, but for these tutorials I don't believe that it adds that much to it. So let's keep it simple and just keep it to email and password. Okay, so now we can move that away from here. I'm going to clear this, zoom in a bit so that you guys can see. And I'm going to open up Visual Studio. Okay, I'm going to make sure that my Docker is running and it will do its thing in the background. But for now, I'm going to show you what you can do in order to go to the documentation. So you just have a button in here that says go to docs. And this is in Portuguese. I'm going to translate it really fast. Okay, and getting started for the web. Okay, and if you go to the bottom of this, you have the authentication part, which contains all of the code that we are going to use. And as you can see, it is really well explained. So yeah, no need to worry about this. So now we are ready to start coding. Let me just check if my Docker is running. It still is doing some stuff, so let's leave it at that. And the first thing that we are going to do is to get our front end ready. So for this, you go into source, and I'm going to create a new folder here, which I'll call components. Components is, think of it like classes, where we want a navbar, we'll create a new component called navbar. We want a login page, we'll create a new component called login. So this is the folder which will contain all of the important parts of the front end. So the first thing that we're going to do is to create a new file, which we'll call just navbar. This will be our navbar, obviously. And before going any further, I'm going to just install one extension, which I can search simply by placing React. And then it will be this one, ES7 React Redux GraphQL, whatever. This is just a package which will allow you to write boilerplate code really fast. So just by typing a keyword, it will create a boilerplate for you, which is really cool. Let's just get out of here, go into navbar, and for example, type RCE. This will create a component for you, so it will write the boilerplates of the component, which is really cool because you don't need to worry about anything other than just the code itself. This boilerplate part, I don't remember it, so this is a really cool package to have. So in our navbar, we can first of all create a class name, give the name of navbar. Okay, and then inside here, we'll have two buttons. Or better yet, we'll just have one button for the beginning, and then I'll show you how to do the rest, because it is, we'll have to have some knowledge on Firebase, so let's wait a bit for that. Okay, so right now, when we click login, we want to redirect our page, but we don't have anything yet. That's right. So we have to come into app.js and create our routes. So we'll leave navbar standing for a bit. Right now it has a button, but we don't have any way of showing it. So before writing any other code, I'm going to come into app.js and I'm going to create our routes system, which will basically redirect our page to a component that we want, depending on the URL that the user is on at the moment. So this is, again, pretty straightforward. All we have to do before even writing any code is to import a couple of things, which will be browser. And let me just check because I don't know this by heart. Yeah, browser, router as router, and then comma router. Okay, this will be from the React router DOM, and it isn't there, so React router DOM. There we go. So this is just a way of redirecting the page to the components that we want to show, which is obviously important. And we can leave all else that's in here. But for now, as you can see, we just have the front end showing. And let me come into our page. So localhost 3000. And there is an error. Let me just check what it is. It isn't router, it is routes. Sorry about that. And now we have the front end connected. So let's just start writing our router. So for now, we'll just have a couple of pages. Let's open up the tag and then simply say routes. And in each route tag that we have, we'll have a path. So the path for the home page is obviously just slash. I missed the equal. And then we'll have just our home. Okay. And we don't need to have the full-on tag. But for now, this is a variable which we haven't declared yet. So first things first, I'm going to create a new file again, which we'll call home.js, call RCE, click enter, and then say this is home, for example. Okay. So now we can come up top, below, can be here, and say import home from, and now we have to see where we want to go. We want to go to components, so let's say dot slash components slash home, and there we go, we have our home. And now if you come in here, there is an error. Let's check what it is. Oh, I didn't capitalize that H, and there we go, we have this is home in here. So it is redirecting to this page, right? Which is awesome. Now in the home page, we can import the navbar from, and in this case, we don't need to go into components because home is already inside components. So we just need to say dot slash navbar. Okay. And now we can come in here and say navbar. And this is how you call components in React. So you just pretend that it is a tag and it will assume it as such. Okay, so now we have a navbar. And if you come in here, we have the button login. So if you jump into the page, we have the login there. So this is our navbar. Really pretty awesome, huh? So yeah, now we want to redirect to the login page, but we don't have a login page. So I'm going to actually create a folder and call it user. And this folder will contain all of the components related to the user. So the first one and the obvious one is the login. I'm going to call RCE again, and this will be our login page. So login page. Okay. So now all that we have left to do in order to start using the login page is to redirect the page to the login page. And we can do this by using a React tag, which is called link. So I'm going to import it right now. And again, really simple, simply say import between brackets, curly brackets, link from React router DOM. And this link, and I'm going to substitute it for our button, simply redirects the page to wherever you want. And for that, you'll need to pass along the path that you want the user to go to. So you simply say to, then open two curly brackets and say path name. And now simply add the /login. Okay, so now going back into our router, all you have to do is to double up on the route, say login, and then tell the router that it has to go to the login component. Right now we don't have one, so let's simply create one. And remember, it is in our user folder, just to keep things organized, and say login. Okay, and we have to change the name of this as well. And it changed color to green, so that means it is as it should be. And now going back into our YouTube clone, as you can see, this is a link. It isn't a button anymore. And if you click, you'll see that our URL changes. So login, and there you go. Now it is still showing this is home. And let me just check why that is. And the reason why that is because you don't have exact in here. And this is a problem because, or this problem originated because, as you can see, slash also is a subset of the path /login. That means that because the route goes through each and every single route, it will also call on the component home and not just login. So if we add exact and we go back to our page, let me just come in here, as you can see, the main page disappeared. And if we remove it, then it will appear. You can also trick this by just adding a different path in here and login page will appear. So, but for now, I want it to be just slash because it is simpler and easier for the user. So let's add exact in here. Then in the login page, I'm going to add the navbar. And let's start writing some code for the login. The login system is pretty simple and there's really nothing to worry about. The first thing that we'll need is to add the constructor for this component. So let's say constructor props, and this is how you call constructors in React. And then you say super props, right? Again, this is JavaScript. You don't need a semicolon, but I prefer to use it because if you use tools like ESLint, it will prefer you to use, and you have to disable that feature or that check in the ESLint ignore, if I'm not mistaken. So I just prefer to add it. So now we'll have the state. And if you're not familiar with states, in the React ecosphere, state is what contains all of your data for that component. So in this case, we'll have our variables here, which we'll use throughout our component. You can think of these like your global variables. That's an easy way of thinking about stuff like this. And we'll have the password and the email in this case. So password and email. And these will be our variables, which we'll use to change in the input label, input tags, and in order to make the request using the functions that Firebase provides. Okay, then we know that we'll have two functions, at least, on sign up, which we need the brackets there, the parentheses there, and on sign in. All right, these will be our main functions, obviously. And now we can simply come into our render function, which is called anytime the state changes or there's a change in the component. And we'll simply start creating our form. So it will be a really simple one. I'm going to say class name equals to container, and then inside it I'll simply have an input, and this input can be closed on itself, and it will contain the placeholder, which is equal to email, and this part is really straightforward, as you can see. Then let's use a bit of bootstrap just to make sure everything looks clean or clean-ish. So call MD12 to make it occupy the entire row. Then the type will be email. The value, and this is the thing that you have to be conscious about in React, you have to pass along the value to the input. So in this case, and there's no need for the quotes there, just curly brackets. In this case, our variable will be the this.state.email. Okay, and then on change, and this is called anytime the user presses a key while focusing on these inputs, to have E, then arrow function, this.setState, and we'll set the email, or better yet, update the email to the current value, which in this case is E dot targets dot value. Okay, as easy as that. And now we can simply copy and paste this whole part again, because we need the password. So passwords, that's not correctly written, passwords, and simply change out password for email. Okay, so that's basically it. Now we just need buttons in order to call on sign in and on sign up, obviously. So button, this has to be the complete tag, yeah. And the first button will be login. The class name, let's make it half the width of the container, yeah, of the container. So md.-6, and we can do the onClick right now. So onClick, which is when the user actually clicks the button, you'll just call the this.onSignIn, and do the same thing for the sign up, obviously. So on sign up, but change the name to register. So let's go into our page to see how it looks, and there we go. We have a login. It doesn't look that great, but we have the functional parts. I'm just going to add a bit of padding, a bit of margin in here, just make things a bit clearer. So margin bottom 3. This is, again, is a bootstrap tag, and if you come in here, it added a nice little margin. Okay, so now we are ready to start writing some Firebase specific code, and the first thing that we're going to do is to import Firebase from Firebase, and because it is already installed using npm, you don't need to worry about that. It should be running in your system right now. Now, coming into our Firebase docs, we are going to, this is in Portuguese, but I want it in English. Let me just give it a second. Okay, we want this function, which is the firebase.auth.createUser with email and password. So I'm going to grab this and drop it in here. Now, because Firebase uses states in order to manage the variables, you have to say this.state.email and this.state.password. Don't forget it, that's important. And let's remove this. And let's just console log the error, just to see if anything goes badly. Okay? And let's do the same for the on sign in. but instead of create user with email and password, it is sign in with email and password. Okay, and that's basically it. Let's try now to log in and see if everything goes smoothly. I'm going to open up my console developer tools. I'm going to try to create a user. So test1 at gmail.com 1 2 3 4 5 6. And I believe I changed this to a password. Type. The type is supposed to be password. There you go. So let's do that again. At gmail.com 1 2 3 4 5. And I'm going to try to register using just 4 characters. And you'll see why in a second. Let's register. And there is an error. Let me just check. And it says that these cannot read property state of undefined. And this is because we made one small mistake. We didn't add the bind functions for on sign up and on sign in. You have to do this anytime you want to use a function which calls upon the state. So you just say this dot on sign in dot bind this. This way it will gain access to the this function, and it will be able to obviously reach the state variables. So do the same thing for on sign up. And let's try this one more time. So test at gmail.com 1 2 3 4, and let's try to register, and it gave an error. So let's see where it is, and this is a bit small. That's better. Password should be at least 6 characters. This is because Firebase only allows for passwords to be at least 6 characters. So if it is less than that, it will refuse it. So let's add the 5 and the 6 that was missing and register. No error appeared. That's a good sign, obviously. Let's go to users, and test at gmail.com is there. That's great. And if we try to log in, no error would appear, and that means that obviously the user has successfully logged in. And now to just one final thing, in order to end this lesson, I'm going to check if the user is logged in or not, so that we can obviously see what's going on. We can do this by saying if firebase.auth.current user equals to undefined, then that means that the user is not logged in. And because it is not logged in, then it means that we want to display this piece of code in order for the user to either log in or register, obviously. If the user is not logged in, then we want to redirect the user to the home page, because we don't want users to be logged in and have access to this page. So for this, we can use one little function, or better yet, tag, which is called redirect. It is really cool because it allows you to redirect pages in real time. So from React router DOM, again the same library that we were using before. So if the user is not logged in, this will be shown. If not, we can return another piece of code, which will just contain the redirect, and then we say push to home page, which is / for us. And this is what we wanted to do. And I made an error because in here you have to add the parentheses. Okay, now going back to our page, if we try to go to login, then you'll see that it doesn't go to login because it redirects automatically to the home page. Now let's just add the logout button. And for this, I'm going to come in here. Instead of login, it will be logout, so we don't have the need for this. Unclick and say these dots on sign out, and this will be the function that takes care of signing out the user. Log out, add the button there. If you come into the front page, the logout button will appear there. Okay, and now we don't need a constructor because we are not going to bind this function. There's no need for that. Just call onSignOut, open curly brackets, and now in order to sign out, all you have to do is firebase.auth and simply say sign out. We can then just call a catch function just to see if anything went wrong. And there we go. Now we should be able to sign out freely. So let's come into our page, and again, Firebase is not defined, so we'll just say import Firebase from Firebase. And let's try to log out. No errors showed up. So now we are able to go to the login page and again try to log in. So test@gmail.com, 1 2 3 4 5 6, login, and no errors appeared, so it should be logged in. Now we are redirected to the login page and we are not allowed to go inside the login page. And if you log out, then we are able to go to the login page. So this is done. Obviously, there is not a lot of feedback to the user right now. I'm trying to keep this as simple as possible and as bare bones as possible. So for now, this is enough. The lesson is getting a bit long also. So in the next lesson, we'll do the part of the token validation, which we'll start using the backend for that. We'll also improve this a bit. But for the most part, it is logging in, it is registering, so it is doing all that we set out to do in the beginning of the lesson. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope to see you again tomorrow, and ciao!